will be shamed to show his face in Argentina after this fight.
Listen to me. Why you not go with the army? You chicken? Why you not go with the army?
I will tell you Monday night in the first clinch we get in.
Chicken, you chicken. Beep, 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 chicken, beep.
Good deal. Keep talking.
Chicken.
Keep talking. Now I know you're gonna get a whooping. I'm gonna punish you.
Silenced by the Mafia. That's what happened to Oscar Bonavena, a man who survived the greatest fighters in the world, a man who stood toe-to-toe with Muhammad Ali for 15 rounds, a man whose heart was so strong that nothing could stop him, nothing except a bullet from a tower in the Nevada desert. But this is not just a story about a death. This is a story about a system built to protect the killers and bury the truth. And it all started with a moment that made Ringo unforgettable. It was December 7th, 1970, Madison Square Garden. Muhammad Ali was coming back from exile. He needed a real test. He needed someone tough. He needed Oscar Bonavena. For 14 rounds, the Argentine frustrated the greatest boxer alive. Ringo walked through Ali's jabs. He absorbed combinations that would drop other men. In the 9th round, he landed a hook that made Ali's knees buckle. The crowd gasped. The upset seemed real. But in the 15th round, Ali found his rhythm. He caught Ringo with a perfect left hook. Bonavena went down. He got up. He went down again. He got up again. And finally, Ali stopped him. But everyone in that arena knew the truth. Oscar Bonavena had fought the greatest and lived to tell about it. He had earned the world's respect, and that moment made him immortal. That moment made him a legend. If you're watching this and you want to understand the real story behind Ringo's death, use the hype feature right now. Give this video hype, because this is a story that deserves to be seen. This is the truth that powerful people wanted buried. But the legend of Ringo did not start in Madison Square Garden. It started in a neighborhood called Patricios in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Oscar Natalio Bonavena was born on September 25th, 1942. He grew up in a working-class world. His family had no money, but young Oscar had something else. He had heart, he had strength, and he had ambition. From the very beginning, he was different. He was not a quiet kid. He was loud, he was funny, he was a character. When he was a teenager, he discovered boxing, and boxing discovered him. Ringo was not a technician. He was not an artist with his hands. He was a brawler, a street fighter who wore gloves. He was flat-footed. His footwork was clumsy. He threw punches from weird angles. Boxing coaches shook their heads. He was doing everything wrong, but he had one thing that could not be taught. He had a chin made of steel. He could absorb punishment that would put normal men in the hospital. He could walk through punches and keep coming. That was his weapon. But Ringo understood something else. He understood that boxing was not just about fighting. It was about selling. It was about being a character. So he gave himself a nickname, Ringo. He got a haircut like the Beatles. He recorded pop songs. He went on television. He became famous in Argentina. He became the people's champion. Not because he was the most skilled, but because he was brave. He was emotional. He was flawed. He was someone the working people could root for. His style was simple. He was a brawler who turned every fight into a war. He did not dance. He did not move. He stood in front of you and threw power punches. He bullied opponents with his strength. He made them tired. He made them hurt. And then he pushed forward and broke them down. It was not pretty boxing, but it was effective boxing. And it won fights against the best heavyweights in the world. In 1966, Bonavena fought Joe Frazier for the first time at Madison Square Garden. Frazier was supposed to be the next great heavyweight. He had power. He had speed. He had technique, but Ringo did something nobody expected. He knocked Frazier down twice. In the second round, the entire boxing world was shocked. Frazier got up and won the fight, but everyone knew that Bonavena had proven he belonged with the elite. He had hurt the man who would become the heavyweight champion. They fought again in 1968. This time, it was a 15-round war. Frazier threw his legendary left hook over and over. Ringo absorbed it. He never took a step back. He never gave up. He never quit fighting. By the end, Frazier won. But everyone who watched that fight knew something about Oscar Bonavena. He was the toughest out in the division. If you could not beat Ringo, you had no business fighting for the title. That was the reputation he earned. But then came the Ali fight. December 1970. Ali was coming back. He had been away for 3 years because he refused to go to Vietnam. Now he was back. He wanted to prove he could still be the greatest. So he took the Oscar Bonavena fight, and Ringo was ready. For 14 rounds, Bonavena made Ali work harder than he wanted. Ringo frustrated him. He walked through Ali's combinations. He taunted him. He stuck out his chin and dared Ali to hit him. In round 9, Ringo landed a big left hook. Ali's legs got shaky. The crowd went crazy. This was real. This was possible. Bonavena could actually beat Ali. But Ali is Ali. In round 15, he unleashed everything. He caught Ringo with a perfect hook. Ringo went down. He got back up. He went down again. This time, he could not continue. Ali stopped him. But Ringo had done something incredible. He had fought Muhammad Ali for 15 rounds. He had proven he belonged in that ring. He had earned immortality. After that fight, Oscar Bonavena was a household name. He was respected. He was loved in Argentina. He was famous around the world. He had accomplished what he set out to do. He had become a legend. He had proven he could stand with the greatest. But legends fade, fighters age, bodies break down. By the mid-1970s, Oscar Bonavena was in his early 30s. But in the heavyweight division, that is old. His body was falling apart. His knees were shot from all those wars with Frazier and Ali. His reflexes were gone. His legs were heavy. He was not the same fighter anymore. A new generation was rising. George Foreman, Ken Norton, Larry Holmes. These young guns were faster. They were stronger. They were hungry. But Ringo still believed. He still thought one big win could get him a rematch with Ali. One big payday. One more chance at glory. That belief kept him fighting. But the major promoters did not want him anymore. He was damaged goods. He was old. He was difficult to manage. He was too much trouble. Back in Argentina, the Boxing Federation was tired of him too. They said he was breaking the rules. They took away his license. They banned him from boxing in his own country. He was blacklisted. He was desperate. He needed to find work. He needed to find money. He had a family to support. So he looked north. He looked to the United States. He looked for someone who would believe in him. He looked for someone crazy enough to take a chance on a fading fighter. He found Joe Conforte. Joe Conforte was born in Sicily in 1925. When he was a boy, he came to America with nothing. He was poor. He was hungry. He worked his way up from driving taxis. But he was smart. He was ruthless. And he understood power. By the 1970s, he had built an empire. He owned the Mustang Ranch. It was the biggest legal brothel in America. It was located in Nevada in Story County, about 15 miles from Reno. The Mustang Ranch was not just a brothel. It was a fortress. It had high fences. It had guard towers. It looked like a prison. But inside, there was money flowing like water. Confort controlled everything. He had political connections. He had judges and district attorneys in his pocket. He bragged about this. He wanted people to know that he was the king of Reno, that he ran the entire county. He was a man with a violent temper. He had security men who would do anything he told them. He was connected to organized crime, and he wanted legitimacy. He wanted to be seen as respectable. He thought owning a heavyweight boxer would help. It would bring famous people to his ranch. It would make him seem cultured. It would make him seem powerful. So Conforte bought Oscar Bonavena's contract. He paid very little. He knew Ringo was desperate. He knew the fighter had nowhere else to go. The contract was technically held by Sally Confort, Joe's wife. This was done to get around rules that said a brothel owner could not hold a boxing license. But everyone knew the truth. Joe Conforte owned Oscar Bonavena. Bonavena was now his property. Ringo did not understand what he was getting into. He thought this was just business. He thought it was like any boxing promotion. He was wrong. He was about to enter a world with different rules. A world where violence solved problems. A world where the strong took what they wanted and the weak disappeared. Oscar Bonavena moved into a trailer on the grounds of the Mustang Ranch. He was surrounded by everything bad for an athlete. There was alcohol, there was gambling, there were drugs. There was the constant party of the brothel. For an elite fighter, it was toxic. Ringo started drinking. He started smoking. He was unraveling. He was no longer a professional athlete. He was a mascot, a celebrity attraction. He was paraded around for customers to look at. He shook hands with men who came to the brothel. He smiled for photos. He was degraded. His pride was being eaten alive, and then something happened that would seal his fate. Oscar Bonavena began an affair with Sally Conforte. Sally was almost 60 years old. She was the one who actually ran the business. She controlled the money. She had power. Ringo was 33. He was young. He was handsome. He was famous. He thought he could use this relationship to his advantage. He thought he could get Sally on his side. He thought he could outmaneuver Joe and take control of his own career. He thought he could outsmart the king of Reno. He was very wrong. Joe Conforte found out about the affair, and it destroyed him. In the world of organized crime, a man's wife is sacred. To sleep with the boss's wife is a death sentence. It is the ultimate betrayal. It is the ultimate disrespect. Ringo had humiliated Joe in his own house. Ringo had made him a fool. Joe Conforte could not let that stand. Word began to spread around Reno. People whispered that Ringo was walking on a razor's edge. He was disrespecting the king, and the king did not forgive disrespect. Emboldened by his relationship with Sally, Ringo began to act like he was in charge. He yelled at the security guards. He demanded respect. He acted like a partner instead of an employee. He acted like he owned the place. The guards hated him for it. They were loyal to Joe. They saw this Argentine boxer as an outsider who was disrespecting their boss. The tension at the ranch became unbearable. Ringo was openly defiant. He relied on Sally's protection, but he did not realize the truth. Sally might have the license, but Joe had the power. In mid-May 1976, Joe Confort made his move. The new Mustang Ranch facility had just opened. Ringo's presence had become a liability. Confort ordered him evicted, but this was not a simple eviction. This was a public humiliation. Conforte's men came to Ringo's trailer. They took all his belongings, they took his clothes, they took his training gear, they took his passport, and they burned everything in a bonfire outside the ranch. This was a message. message. You are nothing here. You have no power. You have no identity. You have no way to escape. The destruction of the passport was the cruelest touch. It trapped Ringo in America. It stripped away his ability to run back to Argentina. It put him in Conforte's world with no exit. Joe Conforte had made his point. He had made it clear that Ringo was finished. After the eviction, Conforte gave an order to his security team. The order came from the top. Oscar Bonavena was banned from the property. He was to be considered armed and dangerous. He was not to be allowed back under any circumstances. The head of security was a man named Willard Ross Brymer. Brymer was not a simple guard. He was Conforte's personal enforcer. He was a man with a history of violence. He had served prison time for robbery. He was blindly loyal to Joe. And he was an expert with firearms. This order was a death sentence. It was a shoot-on-sight order disguised as a security protocol. Everyone at the ranch understood what it meant. If Ringo came back, they would kill him. The stage was set. The trap was laid. All that was needed was for Ringo to walk into it. On the night of May 21st, 1976, Oscar Bonavena was falling apart. He was at the casinos in Reno, probably Harrah's. He was drinking. He was gambling. He was desperate. He was telling people that he was going to go to the ranch. He was going to confront Joe. He was going to get his papers back. He was going to get his passport. He was going to get his identity back. His friends tried to stop him. They told him it was suicide, but Ringo would not listen. He had the same stubbornness that had kept him upright against Ollie. He believed he could fight his way through. He believed he could talk his way through the gate. He believed his courage would save him. But courage does not work against a rifle. Courage does not work against organized crime. Courage does not work in a world where the rules are written by the strong and enforced by bullets. Ringo was operating under the rules of boxing. In boxing, a big mouth sells tickets. In boxing, courage is rewarded. In boxing, there is a referee. In boxing, there are rules. But at the Mustang Ranch, there were no rules. There was only power. And Joe Conforte had it all. At approximately 6 o'clock in the morning on May 22nd, 1976, Oscar Bonavena drove to the gate of the Mustang Ranch. He was driving a gray Chevrolet Monte Carlo. The sun was just coming up. The desert was quiet. He stopped at the tall, locked wire gate. He did not try to ram through it. He got out of his car. He stood there exposed, a massive man in the morning light. His size 14 shoes on the Nevada dirt. His distinctive flat-top hair catching the sunrise. He began shouting at the intercom. He demanded entry. He demanded to see Joe. He demanded his belongings. He demanded his passport. His voice echoed across the empty desert. Inside the compound, the security team was ready. They had been waiting for this moment. High above the gate in the guard tower stood Willard Ross Brymer. He was looking down at the unarmed boxer. Brymer held a high-powered rifle. It was a .30-06. It was a hunting rifle with a scope. It was designed to bring down elk and bear from hundreds of yards away. At a distance of 30 yards, it was a cannon. The confrontation was brief. Ringo shouted. The guards told him to leave. Then, according to the official story, Ringo reached down toward his boot. Brymer watched through the scope. He saw the movement. He believed it was a weapon. He squeezed the trigger. The rifle fired. The sound shattered the morning calm. The bullet traveled at over 2,800 feet per second. It struck Bonavena in the chest. It pierced his heart. It destroyed the organ that had beaten so strong through 15 rounds with Ollie. The wild bull collapsed. He was dead before he hit the Nevada dirt. The official story was that Ringo was reaching for a gun, that he was armed and dangerous, that Brymer was acting in self-defense. But this story had problems. Serious problems. The distance from the tower to the gate was 30 yards. At that distance, it is very hard to see a hand reaching inside a boot. It is almost impossible to see clearly enough to know there's a weapon. The angle from the guard tower made it even harder. Most forensic experts questioned whether Brymer could have actually seen what he claimed to see. And then there was the weapon itself. A snub-nosed .38 revolver was found near Ringo's body, but his friends said he was not armed. Ringo was a fighter. He used his fists. He was not known to carry guns. The real story, according to investigators, was different. The gun was planted. It was a drop piece. Conforte's men had time to plant it before the police arrived. They had over an hour. They had plenty of time to get a gun from the ranch, wipe it down, and place it near the body. This is a classic organized crime tactic. Turn a murder into self-defense. The investigation that followed was completely compromised. Joe Conforte was the king of Reno. His influence ran deep into the government. The district attorney had ties to Conforte. There were whispers of an intimate relationship. Conforte was a major donor to political campaigns. The Mustang Ranch was the economic engine of Story County. The taxes and fees from the brothel paid the salaries of local government. No politician wanted to prosecute the man who signed the checks. The crime scene was contaminated from the start. Conforte's men were allowed to secure the area before police arrived. They had time to remove evidence. They had time to plant the gun. They had time to coordinate their stories. Witnesses disappeared. The working girls at the ranch who might have seen the shooting from their windows were moved to other states. They were intimidated into silence. This is the hallmark of organized crime. Make the witnesses disappear. The autopsy was rushed. The body was processed quickly and released to fly back to Argentina. This prevented an independent forensic team from doing a second examination. It prevented the Bonavena family from hiring their own experts to challenge the official story. The local media did their part too. The newspapers in Reno called Ringo a madman. They called him violent. They said he was drug-crazed. They painted a picture of a man who brought his death upon himself. This was character assassination. It was designed to poison the jury pool. It was designed to make Brymer look innocent. If Ringo was a monster, then Brymer was just a guard doing his job. The trial was a mockery. Willard Ross Brymer was initially charged with murder, but the charge was quickly reduced to voluntary manslaughter. The court accepted the narrative of imperfect self-defense. The idea that Brymer honestly believed his life was in danger, even though he was in a tower with a rifle and Ringo was unarmed on the ground. Brymer was sentenced to 2 years in Nevada State Prison. He served only 15 months. A man who killed a world-renowned heavyweight with a high-powered rifle served less time than a petty thief. This was the message. In Story County, Conforte's law was the only law that mattered. The system had bent backward to protect the Mustang Ranch. Joe Conforte was never charged. He was never prosecuted for the murder. He walked free, but his empire eventually crumbled. In 1980, facing massive federal charges for tax evasion, Conforte fled the United States. He became a fugitive. He ran to Brazil and lived there beyond the reach of American law for decades. He never went to prison for the Ringo murder, but he lost his kingdom. The Mustang Ranch was eventually seized by the federal government and shut down. His empire of vice was erased. When Oscar Bonavena's body was returned to Buenos Aires, the entire city stopped. His wake was held at Luna Park. Luna Park was the legendary arena where he had fought his greatest battles. It was where he had become a hero. Now it was a shrine to his death. Over 150,000 people came to pay their respects. Men cried in the streets. Flowers piled up like snowdrifts. To the Argentine people, Ringo had not just been killed. He had been martyred. He was seen as a victim of America. He was a victim of American capitalism. He was a victim of American violence. He was a victim of the gringos who had chewed him up and thrown him away. His death became a wound in Argentine sports history. It became a symbol of exploitation. It became proof that powerful men could do whatever they wanted and get away with it. But here is the truth that needs to be understood. Ringo's death was not purely an accident of fate. It was not just bad luck. He made choices that led him to that gate at 6 in the morning. He made choices that put him in danger. He walked into a world he did not understand. He thought the rules of boxing applied everywhere. He thought his courage would protect him. He thought his fame made him special. He was wrong. In the ring, there are rules. There is a referee. There is a code. Outside the gate of the Mustang Ranch, there were no rules. There was only a man in a tower with a rifle. There was only a system designed to protect killers. Ringo survived 15 rounds with Muhammad Ali. He survived wars with Joe Frazier. He survived countless battles. But he could not survive his own ego. He could not survive his arrogance. He could not survive his refusal to back down. This is the lesson of Oscar Bonavena. Fame is not a shield. Courage is not a weapon against a rifle. You cannot fight organized crime with your fists. You cannot outsmart men who have nothing to lose. When you walk into a world with different rules, you have to understand those rules. Ringo did not understand, and it cost him his life. The ghost of Oscar Bonavena still haunts boxing history. He is remembered as a legend. He is remembered as the wild bull. He is remembered as the people's champion. He is remembered as the man who fought Muhammad Ali. But he is also remembered as a cautionary tale, a tale about the dangers of fame, a tale about the predatory nature of the fight game, a tale about the dark partnership between boxing and organized crime. Boxing and organized crime have always been connected. Both industries are built on the exploitation of bodies for profit. Both industries are built on violence. Both industries reward the strong and punish the weak. Joe Conforte saw Oscar Bonavena as a commodity, as something to use and then discard when it became inconvenient. He bought him cheap. He used him. He squeezed all the value out of him. And when Ringo became a problem, Conforte simply had him removed. This is the truth that powerful people wanted buried. This is the truth that the legal system covered up. This is the truth that the media helped hide. Oscar Bonavena was not killed in a fair fight. He was not killed in self-defense. He was assassinated by a system of corruption and violence. He was assassinated because he disrespected the wrong man. He was assassinated because he did not understand the rules of the criminal world. Today, the site of the old Mustang Ranch is abandoned. The neon is dark. The fortress is empty, but the story lives on. The story of Oscar Bonavena lives on in Argentina. It lives on in boxing. It lives on in the memories of those who knew him. He was a man who lived fearlessly. He lived loudly. He lived without compromise. He fought the world, and for a long time, he was winning. But in the end, it took a bullet to stop the wild bull, because no man could do it with his fists alone. The only thing that could defeat Oscar Bonavena was a system built to protect the killers and bury the truth, and that system worked perfectly. Joe Conforte lived. Willard Ross Brymer walked free. The truth was covered up. The case was closed. Justice was not served. Oscar Bonavena was silenced. Silenced by the mafia. Silenced by corruption. Silenced by a system that chose money money over truth. But his story refuses to stay silent because his death was no accident. It was an execution, an assassination. And the world needs to know the truth. The evidence is overwhelming. The forensic problems are clear. The planted gun is solid. The political connections are documented. The disappearing witnesses are real. This was not self-defense. This was a hit by organized crime protected by corrupt officials. Ringo's fatal mistake was thinking boxing rules apply to the crime world. In the ring, you can talk trash and make money. You can recover from being knocked down. But at the Mustang Ranch, there was only death. Conforti understood that betrayal could not be tolerated. An affair with his wife was the ultimate violation, and the system would protect him because he was too important, too connected. Sally Confort died in 1992 and never spoke about that morning. She took her secrets to her grave. Willard Ross Breimer served his 15 months and disappeared. That is what men who do this work do. They vanish. But Oscar Bonavena never disappeared from memory. In Argentina, he is a legend. Young boxers watch videos of his fights. He is remembered as someone who never backed down. This is the duality of his legacy. He is remembered for his greatness, his wars with heavyweights, his heart and toughness, but he is also remembered for his death, for how it revealed corruption, for how it exposed the system, for how power and money could override justice. His story matters because it exposes real corruption. It shows what happens when organized crime intersects with sports. It reveals boxing's dark underbelly. It is a warning. Do not let your ego make you blind. Do not think fame protects you. Do not think courage is a weapon against a rifle. Do not play in different rule worlds and expect safety. Oscar Bonavena lived his life without compromise. He was loud. He was brash. He was emotional. These qualities made him great in the ring, but they made him vulnerable outside. They made him unable to see danger. They made him walk to a gate at 6 in the morning to confront a man who had decided he would die. The tragedy is not just that he died. It is that he died because he could not be anyone other than who he was. His courage was both his glory and his doom. He could not submit because submission was not in his nature. So he walked to the gate and he died. But his memory lives forever in the hearts of those who remember the wild bull. Oscar Ringo Bonavena, the fighter, the legend, the man who was silenced by the mafia, but whose story will never be forgotten.